It's a big week for Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War. Let's put that in quotation marks. The Secretary of War looks like he's at war with part of the MAGA coalition. People keep coming for Pete Hegseth. What's going on with that?
Well, Pete Hegseth, as you know, has made a lot of stumbles in his tenure as now Secretary of War. And he's not part of the inner circle of what Trump and team are deciding when it comes to foreign policy. He was not part of any of the Middle East peace process conversations, anything about Israel putting down arms or ceasefire, anything about Hamas and anti-terror negotiations, right? So he is a Secretary of War who almost exclusively focuses on what he thinks are fat generals or the fat National Guard that he no longer wants to be deployed in Illinois. I mean, he's very much focused on reshaping the size of the American military, but not in ways that actually get more people to sign up to serve, but in ways that dial back the clock. He doesn't want women in service. He doesn't want any standards that he thinks are below what should be men being strong. I mean, that seems to be his guiding principle is, being firm and strong and telling people what to do. And that's having a negative impact. I can't imagine that actually plays well with any of his colleagues.
Yes, I'm going to keep this podcast on the level. So listen, one of the things that is happening right now with Pete Hegseth is that the Department of Defense had decided a few weeks ago that they weren't going to let journalists be in the press room who didn't agree to this asinine policy that they would not report things that were not officially reported by the Department of Defense. Basically, they wanted stenographers. They just wanted people to come in and write down whatever was in the press releases, whatever they said at the podium, and put that out. But if you got information in the hallway, if you got information, from another source that wasn't official, you couldn't put it out and keep your press badge. So a lot of news organizations are saying, no, they don't want to go along with this. And two of the news organizations that are saying that are Newsmax, which we know they're very Trumpy, and reportedly Fox News is also coming out and saying that they are not going to go along with this policy. Now, we do know that OANN is going to go out with it, is going to go along with it. And so you kind of have this war taking place, this like being on opposite sides of the fence between kind of the big Trumpy organizations like Newsmax and Fox, and then OAN. So we are going to see how this sorts out, but I can't believe if this goes into effect and the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War, whatever he wants to call himself, if he decides that nobody else can participate, you could end up having an entire press suite with all the reporters who are not there. CNN not there, NBC not there, ABC, nor Fox, nor Newsmax.
Well, part of the challenge that we see is this actually is going to end up hurting the public understanding of the military. Reporters aren't going to stop talking. They're not going to stop getting information. So much of what we've known about what went wrong in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, all of these billion-dollar funded wars overseas that took American troops' lives, that part of why we know what went wrong and what happened is because there was an opportunity for people involved to speak directly with reporters, to not have to go through the chain of command, to not do the government's bidding, to not be just a government propagandist. And that's really important for the American public to have reporters on the case and making sure that our military resources are being used in ways the American public would actually want and that the American public can understand. The reporters are going to keep doing their job. What's going to happen is that they're just not going to be sitting in the Pentagon using video footage of whatever the Pentagon press secretary or whatever Hegseth wants to say. So they're really, I mean, Hegseth's shooting himself in the foot. I also don't think he's going to enjoy not having a press corps to take the photos and to
Right.
do, all the stuff that makes Hegseth feel glamorous. That's actually not about the job. I think Hegseth's going to miss that. And so they've overplayed their hand. It's not going to meet their objectives. But Fox News, to their credit, has some of the most stellar reporting out there when it comes to military and war journalism. They're credible. They are informative. And so I think that is also trying to protect their integrity and not just looking out for the Trump administration.
You got to protect the brand. I think that's incredibly important. The other thing that's happening with Hegseth is, remember like a week or so ago, he announced sitting next to one of the members of the government that they were going to put a Air Force facility, a Qatari Air Force facility in Idaho, obviously on American soil. Now, this is after Qatar has given the president of the United States a $400 million plane. This is after The Qataris have been invested with Jared Kushner, and there's all sorts of shenanigans happening with the family, with Trump's family. Now they want to put a Air Force facility on the Idaho, in an Idaho base. Now, there's a lot of questions about whether or not this is an Air Force base or not. But Laura Loomer, who is one of the big right wing, you can't get more Trumpy than Laura Loomer, is Laura. Laura Loomer is that she attacked this. Now, she attacked it from a position I wouldn't take, which is that Muslims shouldn't have Air Force base on American soil, and she really went after them about 9/11. And Trump himself, who had said things in the past about Qatar being the funder of terrorism. And so now, why is it that this sort of bad actor, quote unquote, in their view, gets to have an Air Force base on American soil? Laura Loomer is raising the question. Whether you agree or not, it does show the MAGA coalition does have cracks in it.
Well, usually you don't want foreign military powers having a footprint inside your country. So, yeah, I'm agreeing with Laura Loomer's final decision. Clearly don't agree with how she got there. But no, you shouldn't be giving Qatari military access to U.S. Air Force Base or any land in the U.S. It's supposed to be the other way around, which is what we have, which is the United States keeps a footprint in the Middle East by having military bases in places like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, all over the place. That's what's allowed the United States to help navigate the politics of the region to our advantage. The one I find really entertaining right
Let
now,
me say, before we move on, the Department of Defense did sort of pull back after Loomer went after it. They did pull back and say it's not going to be an actual facility, just going to be a squadron of pilots who are going to train on F-15s in the United States, and not a quote unquote Air Force
well,
base.
they also could train them overseas, which is where a lot of other training
Right.
happens. But yes, there are military exchanges that happen with individuals from different U.S. allied countries where military officials come here, they train, and our officials go there. But this just goes to how poorly Hegseth manages the public conversation.
That's right.
And now somehow he's gotten crosswise with the vice president.
All right. So JD Vance versus Hegseth too. What happened?
The thing I find most entertaining about this is now JD Vance had to step in and clean it up because Hegseth had actually said the United States was going to be signing a document and bringing a Qatari Amiri Air Force base. Like, he went way out there and saying this was going to happen. And JD Vance had to step in on all the Sunday shows, clean it up and say, oh, it was misreporting. It's just some training that's happening. I'm like, that ain't misreporting. Your guy didn't know what he was talking about. And that's a problem when your Secretary of War doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to military allies, military bases, and anything essentially that has to do with our national security.
Maybe it wasn't in the Signal chat. He had to check his he had to check his apps to see what the talking points were. So that's with the Secretary of quote unquote war. But we know also the administration is in a big war. All of them, the entire administration is in a huge war with Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Congresswoman from Georgia, who has somehow or another woken up from her stupor of MAGA crazy and has now decided that she believes, like the Democrats believe, that if the Trump administration does nothing, the costs of healthcare are going to go up to the point where people can't afford it because they're going to let the Obamacare subsidies expire. Those subsidies expire, mean people won't be able to afford their healthcare. One number I saw Senator Raphael Warnock put a number out. He said that if there were, he had a $65,000 a year resident in his state who saw their health care going up from $300 and change a month to over $960 a month. You can't take a tripling of your healthcare cost. Mm-hmm. That's why you need things like these subsidies to be able to help people afford their healthcare and keep their families from going bankrupt.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene has been very clear about saying that Democrats are talking about healthcare. It doesn't matter if they like Obamacare or not, if Obamacare is an issue. She's like, Democrats are talking about healthcare. Republicans need to talk about healthcare also. Instead, the Republican message is blame Democrats for the shutdown. And that is a procedural discussion. That's all about process, not about the reality of what happens to anybody. And that's ultimately what the challenge is that Marjorie Taylor Greene is actually a better sense of what the American public and the MAGA public care about. And they care about healthcare costs across all partisan divides. Healthcare costs are the number one concern for the American public. And at the end of this month, October 31st, if Congress doesn't act, all of these people are going to be getting a letter saying exactly how much their insurance premium is going to go up. It'll cost more. And it is very hard to say when you are the party in power and you have power of all the chambers of Congress and the entire government that it's not your fault. Marjorie Taylor Greene is actually reading the tea leaves way better than anybody in charge on the Republican side right now.
You know what else the MAGA people want? They want Trump to release the Epstein files. On that note, see you next week.